Hey guys, Fresh Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be a Premier League review show reviewing Game 4 of the new 2019-2020 season. There were some big games that threw up some big results in this round of fixtures, and this is the place where I review them all. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to begin with the Emirates Stadium, and this was the scene where Arsenal fought back from 2 goals down to earn a point against Tottenham. Tottenham broke the deadlock through Christian Eriksen with a close range finish inside 10 minutes after Bernd Leno spilled Eric Lamella's shot. Tottenham then doubled their lead later in the half when Harry Kane converted from the penalty spot after Granit Xhaka fouled Son Heung-min in the penalty area. Arsenal managed to halve the deficit on the stroke of half time through Alexander Lacazette's well taken goal to bring Arsenal back into the game. The Gunners managed to find an equaliser in the second half through Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who diverted the ball beyond Hugo Lloris to set up a frantic end-to-end finale. But unfortunately, neither side could find a winner, even after Socrates managed to find the back of the net, but the goal was ruled out correctly for an offside call. And so both sides would have to settle for a point apiece. A result that I predicted, but a strange result at that. Arsenal will feel annoyed they couldn't go on to find the winner, whilst even though they were 2-0 up, Spurs will feel slightly relieved in the fact that they managed to only take a point from this game. Perhaps not the best result for either side, but for now, this rivalry on the football pitch is put to rest until it opens its next chapter. Arsenal face Watford when the Premier League returns from its international break, while Spurs will go on to face Crystal Palace. For our next game, we saw goals from Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva and a brace from Sergio Aguero help Manchester City to a comfortable 4-0 victory over Brighton at the Etihad Stadium. Kevin De Bruyne opened the scoring for City only minutes into the game after being set up by David Silva's cutback to fire into the net. Sergio Aguero then got on the score sheet. This time it was De Bruyne with the assist, playing in the Argentine whose strike found the back of the net, and 10 minutes after the restart, Aguero got on the score sheet for the second time that afternoon with a great strike into the top corner. The afternoon was rounded off but nicely by Bernardo Silva, who scored City's 4th goal of the afternoon as City strolled to victory and collected the 3 points in the process. Fairly predictable win for City here, comfortable 1-2 at that. 4 goals and a clean sheet to boot. Accumulating 10 points from a possible 12 so far is pretty good going into the international break. Brighton would have seen this as a free swing going into the game, so probably won't be too down on the result and will just want to move on from this hammering. Following this break here, the City face Norwich whilst Brighton host Burnley at the Amex Stadium. Our next game saw Jan Vestergaard's second half header rescue a point for Southampton as they held Manchester United to a 1-1 draw at St Mary's. United drew first blood through Dan James when he cut inside from the left and fired into the back of the net. United held their lead till just before the hour mark when Vestergaard headed home past David De Gea to equalise for the home side. Things got a little nervy for the Saints moments later when Kevin Danso got sent off for a second bookable offence, but despite United's dominance of possession beyond that point, Southampton stood strong to earn a point. Good point for the Saints here. They were even in a position where they seemed to have United on the ropes a little and could have even gone on to really test United after the equaliser, but then the sending off tipped the scales back in United's favour. But Ralph Hasenhüttl's side managed to hold on for a great point, and as for United, another frustrating performance by them, a lack of depth in their squad in terms of quality or something different that they can turn to, and now they have to face the international break. When the Premier League returns though for both sides, United face Leicester whilst Southampton travel to Sheffield United. Our next game on this list saw Sheffield United fight back from 2 goals down to earn a point against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. It was a first half that belonged to Chelsea as they went into the interval 2-0 up thanks to goals from Tabby Abraham. His first capitalising on a goalkeeping error by Dean Henderson and shooting home, and the second he capitalised on another defensive error to strike home his second. However, it was only seconds after the restart that the Blades were back in the game. Callum Robinson turned home Stevens' cross to half the deficit for the away side, and Robinson was again involved in the equaliser as his cross was deflected in off of Kurt Zouma, a goal that would go down as an own goal by the Blues defender, as both sides had to settle for a point apiece. A fantastic result this for the Blades, especially when you consider that they came back from 2 goals down to earn this point. They've proven that they can fight for everything in this season, and this result shows that. This result means they've gained 5 points out of a possible 12, a run of results that may not have been predicted by many, and full credit to them for that. As for the Blues, it's a work in progress thing, and that's all you can really say about that, really. The Blues face Wolves after the international break, while Sheffield United host Southampton. Our next game saw Liverpool maintain their perfect start to the season by beating Burnley by 3-0 at Turf Moor in Saturday's evening fixture. The Reds opened the scoring in the first half when Trent Alexander-Arnold's deflected cross looped over Nick Pope in the Burnley goal and into the back of the net. Moments later, the Reds doubled their lead through Sadio Mane after he was played through on goal by Roberto Firmino, and the winger's cool first-time finish found the bottom corner. Jurgen Klopp's side scored their third in the afternoon in the second half, Mohamed Salah teeing up for Firmino, who fired home to put the result beyond all doubt as the Reds made it 12 points from a possible 12. Turf Moor is always a tough place to go, but the Reds have definitely overcome this obstacle and it ended up being pretty convincing, all things considered, in the end. The Clarets will want to move on from this, whilst the Reds will look back and reflect on the perfect start to the season they've endured so far. In the Premier League though, their next game is against Newcastle for the Reds at Anfield, whilst Burnley face a trip to Brighton. Our next game saw goals from Youri Tielemans and a brace from Jamie Vardy help Leicester to a 3-1 victory over Bournemouth to maintain the Foxes' unbeaten start to the season. With 12 minutes on the clock, Leicester opened the scoring. Ben Chilwell's long ball released Jamie Vardy and he executed a great lob over the Bournemouth goalkeeper to score the opening goal. However, the Foxes' lead didn't last very long as Ryan Fraser played through Callum Wilson and he managed to beat Kasper Schmeichel and equalise for the away side. Minutes before half time though, Leicester restored their lead, Vardy this time being the provider, set up Youri Tielemans who scored from close range. Later in the second half, Vardy scored his second and Leicester's third goal of the afternoon to secure all 3 points, putting the game beyond all doubt and maintaining Leicester's unbeaten start to the season. So, Leicester maintain their unbeaten start to the season, and I honestly think that with other teams taking the spotlight, with the likes of Manchester United's poor start, Liverpool's perfect start, Man City being, well, Man City, and Frank Lampard being Chelsea manager, I feel Leicester are slightly going under the radar as to how well they've started this season, and that could be a blessing for the Foxes. As for Bournemouth, this break means that they can have time to recharge and refocus and look to bounce back when they return. The Foxes will look to maintain their unbeaten start when they clash with Manchester United when the Premier League returns, whilst Bournemouth host Everton in their next game. Our next game featured West Ham and Norwich as West Ham made it back-to-back wins after beating the Canaries 2-0 at the London Stadium. Sebastian Haller scored his third goal of the season with 24 minutes on the clock when he slid home off of Masuaku's cross. Andrei Yarmolenko then doubled the Hammers' lead in the second half. He had minutes earlier struck the post, but on the next time of asking, he fired home West Ham's second goal of the afternoon, and Manuel Pellegrini's side went on to see the game out and take all 3 points. So, back-to-back wins on the board now for West Ham, much needed following the start to the season they've endured. As for the Canaries, slightly worrying that they weren't able to score here and again conceded a couple of goals. I do fear that if Timu Pukki isn't scoring, I don't know who would step up in the aspect of goal scoring. And defensively, a young defence that leak goals is not a great sign at all. And Norwich's tough run doesn't get any easier as they face the defending Premier League champions Manchester City in their next game, whilst West Ham will look to make it 3 wins on the bounce when they face Aston Villa. Our next game saw Everton bounce back from last week's defeat to win at Goodison Park against Wolves by 3-2 on Sunday afternoon. The game kicked off with a bang as inside 10 minutes both sides had scored. First, Richarlison took advantage of a Wolves defensive error to fire home his first goal of the season, and then at the other end, Roman Saiss struck home the equaliser. However, it wasn't long before the Toffees were back in front, with Gylfi Sigurdsson's cross was met by the head of Alex Iwobi, who found the back of the net. In the second half, Raul Jimenez scored another Wolves equaliser with a header of his own, before Richarlison won the game for the Toffees with yet another header. Wolves this afternoon, just to add insult to injury, was made worse when Willy Bolly picked up his second yellow card of their game, and as a result was sent off as Everton claimed all 3 points. Clearly a great win for Everton here, a great way to bounce back from last week's defeat, and for them it will be good to see Richarlison back amongst the goals. As for Wolves, the curse of the Europa League may be claiming yet another victim, as they appear to be struggling a little due to their involvement in the qualifying stages of this competition. I think the break will be a welcome one for them, and they can have time to reflect and recover, and obviously look ahead to their next block of games and plan accordingly. Following the international break, Everton travel to Bournemouth, whilst Wolves host Chelsea at Molineux. Some controversial VAR drama was again in the spotlight, as Crystal Palace managed to hold on to a 1-0 victory over Aston Villa at Selhurst Park. The game didn't properly spark into life until the second half, when Villa's Trezeguet was sent off for a second bookable offence, and eventually Palace went on to make the extra man count by breaking the deadlock through Jordan Ayew later in the half. Then, in the dying embers of the game, the controversial moment occurred. Jack Grealish went over in the penalty area and the ball broke to Henry Lansbury, who fired home. However, as Grealish went over in the penalty area, the referee had blown his whistle for a dive against Grealish and the goal was chalked off. VAR had checked the alleged Grealish dive for a penalty appeal, but didn't overturn the referee's decision despite it possibly looking otherwise. So Villa were neither awarded a penalty nor a goal, and instead Palace survived, and in doing so came away with all 3 points. Another case of VAR being in the spotlight again here, and this time it's becoming an issue. The handball rule is quite clear. Regardless of how harsh it is quite clear what they're looking for in that aspect. But this blatant and obvious error thing is ridiculous, because I'm yet to see a decision be overturned by VAR with it always backing the on-field referee's decision. There have been several issues like this that have needed to be overturned but haven't, and it's becoming a serious issue that needs to be addressed. But back to the football, it's a great 3 points for Palace and back-to-back wins to boot, but they'll be feeling rather fortunate by this result, whilst Villa will be fuming at the referee's decision, and whilst it will sting a little bit for them, they'll have to move on from this. Palace's next game is against Tottenham, whilst Villa host West Ham when the Premier League resumes after the international break. And in our final game, Watford finally managed to earn a point on the board as the Hornets and Newcastle played out a 1-1 draw at St James's Park. Will Hughes opened the scoring for the away side inside the first couple of minutes before Newcastle equalised with minutes remaining of the first half through Fabian Schär. Both sides couldn't break the deadlock in the second half, meaning that they both take a share of the spoils. Not an ideal result for either side, but at least Watford have a point on the board. The break will be a welcome one for them, you feel, a time to get their players up to speed, and they can look to really begin their league campaign when the Premier League returns. Speaking of the Premier League returning, when it does return, Newcastle travel to Liverpool, the only team with a perfect start to the new campaign, whilst Watford face Arsenal at Vicarage Road. And that wraps up this Premier League review show for Game 4 of the 2019-2020 season. Guys, if you have any thoughts, comments or opinions on any of the games that happened over the course of the weekend, or any of the major talking points from this round of fixtures, I'd love to read them in the comment section below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.